Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone in the franchise world. My name is Stan Friedman, and this is Franchise Today. Today is Wednesday, January 30th, 2019, and I'm coming to you today from frosty Atlanta, Georgia, where I woke up to 21 degrees earlier this morning, but as you'll hear in a moment or two, who am I to complain? It was plus 21 here as compared to what's going on in the Midwest, where 21 below is what Chicago woke up to this morning, and that's minus 21 degrees. That's amazing. And that's not the wind chill either. The wind chill was actually 51 below zero, if you can believe that. And we, too, should say a prayer today for our friends in the franchise world and the Twin Cities, where the temperatures are even lower than that, and power outages have left thousands without heat. What a contrast from a week ago when I came to you from West Palm Beach on my way to Fort Lauderdale. And speaking of last week, high fives to Dr. John Hayes and his team and all the speakers who participated in the Franchise Sales Boot Camp at Palm Beach Atlantic University's Titus Center for Franchising. There were more than 100 franchise executives in attendance, many of whom, like me, were on their way to Fort Lauderdale for Franchise Expo South. Both of these were great events that FRM Solutions and yours truly were proud to sponsor and participate in. And the last word on last week is my thanks again to my partner in FRM Solutions, as well as being the co-founder and chief marketing technology officer for FRM's parent company, ARC Systems. Chris Spears gave us a tremendous insight into something he's extremely passionate about and calls digital transformation. Chris was a great guest, and we thank him again for sharing that time with us here on Franchise Today last week. We talk a bit about the weather. I'm guessing that right now in the green room, sitting back in the green room, our guest who's headquartered today from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and is with a company called Solink. I'm guessing Jim is back there just kind of laughing his head off at us, talking about all this frigid weather in the South, where these guys are up there in that part of the world. These kinds of temperatures aren't just coincidental occurrences. I'm sure they're more a way of life. But Jim will weigh in on that in a few minutes when we bring him on. But first, I've got the good fortune to be able to introduce you to another Jim. This is Jim Flith, who heads SBA lending nationwide for Key Bank, and is going to take a few minutes on the front of the show today to share some insights on a significant issue that impacts us all in franchising, and that's the recent government shutdown's effect on SBA lending. So with that, I'm going to ask Jim Flith to come on and slide in, and welcome you, Jim, to Franchise Today.
Stan, thank you. Glad to be here. Glad to be calling in from balmy negative 5 degree Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, I thought you'd have something to say about that, but it's the other Jim that's going to be the tail of the tape when it comes to the northern environs. So, Jim, give us a word or two first about Key Bank and your role at Key Bank, and then let's ask just a couple of lightning round questions for you, and the audience will benefit from your insight on what the impact of this shutdown means to those in wait for an SBA loan.
You bet. I am the national SBA manager for Key Bank. I've been in the role. I've been with this group for about 7 years. Prior, I ran credit. We are the 10th largest SBA lender in the country right now, Stan. So,
and what does that mean? What does that mean in dollars? What kind of dollars go through SBA lending for Key Bank?
About $350 million a year.
So that's a whole lot of franchise business, Jim. I know SBA lending is not just franchising, but in the franchise world, it represents a key element to getting franchise deals done. So this government shutdown, it's not really an uncommon event, is it? Or was it?
No, actually, they're pretty common. This one's a little bit different. I mean, typically these government shutdowns are usually resolved in a few days. In fact, when I looked at the last 20 shutdowns, they've averaged about 8 days. So typically, never a good time for a shutdown, but typically the impact to SBA lending is minimal.
So what actually happens when government pulls a shutdown? What happens, and where in the food chain does the SBA's lending process come to a halt? How far in? What can still happen, or what can still be done? What are applicants doing?
Yeah, so one of the things that we that we must obtain, all banks must obtain approval, or as we call it in the industry, an authorization. So for those that had already obtained authorization approvals from the SBA, it was really business as usual when we were able to process and close those loans. When we knew that the shutdown was looming, we worked as fast as we could to obtain as many application numbers, authorization numbers as possible. But unfortunately, for any new requests that came in prior to that, they could not be closed without SBA's approval. So really, Stan, at the end of the day, what we try to do is control what we can control.
And then what happens to those applications that were hanging in the wind? Do they get picked up?
Unfortunately, during the shutdown, small businesses that need SBA financing really don't have any alternative but to wait, right? So we took new applications. We set expectations with our clients that the shutdown was going to impact them, and really took the applications and took the deals as far as we could, meaning obtain everything but that number.
So then those applications are still good. Nobody has to reapply because of the shutdown, right? It'll just pick up after the backlog works its way out. Is that the way it'll be?
Exactly.
And what would you anticipate the economic impact of this shutdown to mean in terms of SBA?
Yeah, you bet. This is important stuff. This is access to capital. As you said, critically important to many franchisees. In small businesses, the growth engine of the economy. To put it in perspective, Stan, the SBA manages about 200 loans for working capital and about 120 loans for commercial properties every day. This is about $200 million worth of loans. And I had read something interesting during the shutdown. They estimated about $2 billion in SBA approvals had been queued up. So substantial.
So now the government's back open. How quickly does this all get back on course? How long is it going to take for some of these backlogged approvals to get pushed through?
Yeah, I think the loans that the loan requests were placed into a queue during the shutdown, and there's a chance that this could lead to a bottleneck, particularly for those banks that aren't what we call preferred lenders. So about 90% of the banks have what we call preferred lender status. In essence, they just notify the government that they're approving the loan. 10% of the banks have what they call CLP status. So they actually have to take these loans now and send them into the SBA's processing center. And again, when you're talking about a $25 billion industry, about 60 to 65,000 loans, they can queue up pretty quick, even with just 10% being CLP submissions.
Well, Jim, I appreciate the update. We could spend an hour on SBA easily, and in fact, I'd like to invite you back to do that the week after next. If you'd like to join me then, we can spend the full hour going more deeply into the world of SBA lending as pertains to franchising.
I'd be pleased to do it, Stan. Thanks for your time today.
Well, thanks for the update, Jim, and I look forward to seeing you and the KeyBank team at the IFA convention in just a few weeks. And
we'll see you in sunny Las Vegas.
And let me toot the horn for KeyBank here before we let Jim go, and let the audience know that KeyBank's made a tremendous commitment to franchising in general, and I'll have a team of people at the booth at IFA to demonstrate that. But moreover, they've made a financial commitment as well to the IFA's Educational Foundation in support of education and communication intended to advance financial wellness for potential and existing franchisees in low and moderate income communities. You'll be hearing a lot more about that in the weeks ahead, and we'll have Jim back the week after next to talk more about Key's role in franchising and SBA lending. Thanks again for joining us, Jim Fliss.
Thanks, Dan. Have a great day.
And right now, it's time to introduce you to today's featured guest and a new sponsor here on Franchise Today, Jim Farrell, Vice President of Solink, so that he can tell us how restaurant and retail operators can revolutionize the way their locations use video to identify and solve transactional problems that affect franchise businesses daily and get more juice out of the squeeze from their existing point-of-sale systems and security hardware. Jim, welcome to Franchise Today.
Thanks, Dan. Really glad to be here, and looking forward to a good chat.
So any comments about us us wusses here in the U.S. that are screaming about the weather when it's a way of life for you up in Canada, probably half the year long?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're definitely, I sit in Ottawa, Canada, which is definitely a colder part of the country, obviously not the coldest part as you get more north and all that stuff, but we're very used to cold, we're very used to snow, but that doesn't necessarily mean we like it, and that doesn't mean it's easy to deal with. We really sort of, have a heavy heart when we see our American brothers and sisters dealing with intense cold or unexpected snow or ice. I mean, we saw snow in the desert, this year. This stuff is hard when you don't have the infrastructure, the equipment, the clothes to deal with it. So we actually look not in sort of in an eye of they're getting what we're used to. It's they're not as well equipped as we are, and so we whatever we can do to help them. We try to do, and so like everything in our partnership with our friends in the United States of America, comes with an empathy aspect of it as well, for sure.
Well, you've got a future in politics someday when you retire from the business world there, Jim, because that was a very, very politically correct and well-balanced answer to my question. So we're going to talk today. We're going to talk today about how you guys at Solink have done to loss prevention systems what Apple and Android have done to cell phones. You've made them smarter, and it's an amazing thing that can be done with existing technology that takes a second bite of the apple and helps operators gain some real business intelligence. But we're going to stop talking about that for a moment until we first talk about you. So every week on Franchise Today, we've made it for years and years. The same question from our guests are, how franchising and you got together, or how did you get into this world in the first place? Let's learn a little bit more about you, the person, and then we're going to talk a whole lot more about Solink, the company.
For sure, yeah. So born and raised in Ottawa, Canada. I've worked for mainly technology companies in a lot of different spaces, anything from data compliance, if you go back to, if everybody remembers, WorldCom and Enron, and what happens when you delete, records and deal with insider trading and stuff like that. So the early part of my career was working for a software company that was originally birthed out of a project with the Canadian federal government, which is still one of the largest litigations in Crown history, which was a private company suing the Canadian government for billions of dollars. And so it gave birth to this new way to deal with compliance data requests, which are just common practice today. I mean, almost 20 years later, electronic record keeping is table stakes for any business that has records, right? So, but back then it wasn't. And so, seeing what happens when you go to a business and show them a dramatically different way of running something that is very painful, sometimes has legal ramifications, but is really costly, and watching a market evolve from that, watching customers realize this value. And so I've sort of stayed in that world through a couple of different cycles here, spent a long time in that world, went to materials compliance. So if you're used to buying, tables and chairs and counters and machines and all this stuff, every little aspect of that has to do some compliance checking as well. So, your fryer, the metal that's used there, any of the copper that's used, they come from parts of the world that maybe have things like conflict minerals and stuff like that. So we spent some time there. It was the same idea, taking a very old process of surveying suppliers to figure out what the source of their materials was, and worked for a company that, revolutionized that and automated that. Take what you're existingly doing and, give it that smartness like you're talking about. And also did this in the sort of a middle part of my career. I was part of the evolution of, what is commonly referred to as cloud computing. When we started it back in the late 2010s, it didn't have a name called cloud. We called it utility computing. And I was with a company that did some very big technology innovations in that. Same idea, taking, and this is where it relates, right? It's taking somebody who, we used to kind of joke, it was two guys and a dog in a basement building the next farm bill, or building Facebook games, or building some application that might change the world for people to use on their mobile devices. And they couldn't compete with the big companies who have access to data centers and server farms. And all of a sudden, this utility computing sort of rent as you go gave the two guys and the dog just as much computing power and ability to scale as any of the billion-dollar companies that they may have been competing with. And so when I was at a change of career, I was looking for a company that had some of those same things. I found this company, Solink, and they had all the right, checked all my boxes, right? We're disrupting a very kind of fat and lazy market in the traditional surveillance security space. We are able to help the little guy have the power that the big guys have without dealing with incurring the staffing or, resources or cost to get the same level of benefit out of an advanced system that, any mom and pop can use, right? So instead of two guys and a dog, it might be Bob and Sally Smith, who own 3 restaurants inside of a franchise brand. And so it just worked perfectly for all the things that I seek out. What I was surprised by as I got into this world is just how amazing the franchise community and industry is, and getting to spend time, being IFA members, getting to spend time with people that have been in the game like you or Mr. Jerry Darnell or Ryan Hicks or any of these guys, spending time with the Zors and the Z's at different shows and hearing what their business is like and what their challenges are like and what motivated them to get into franchising. It's been quite a fun ride and adventure when you can hear the impact it has on families, generations of families, and I think that's something that not enough of the world, but let's say at least not enough of North America understands. And it ties to why we want to protect people. Is we want to protect the brand and the franchisee and the franchisor, but not everybody knows when something happens at a random quick service restaurant that it's not the company necessarily. It might be a franchisee involved, and that kind of duality of ownership of a shared brand between these two parties is fascinating, but I wish more people understood it the way I understand it now. So we're going to try to get that message out along with our partners.
Well, I can't think of a culture that is any richer than franchising when it comes to the spirit of giving, and a lot of our franchisor members and franchisee members in the IFA are all very much a part of that kind of mindset. But it's not often that suppliers bring that same conversation to the table in terms of the passion for sharing and giving. You guys have done quite a bit of that already, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we are, all in this space as far as like what we have a solution that anybody with cameras and transactions can use, but we really focus on franchises and things like that because, again, it's an ability for us to disrupt the market, help the little guy, and the big guy at the same time, right? There's sort of a two-party system here. And part of that is also what it means to these communities, right? When we talk to franchisees and they say, look, I have this to, be my own boss, and it's, less risky to work with an existing brand, and I can help my family, and I can help my community. And it's this constant thread, and you can watch go to any franchising link on any brand's website, and you're going to get a video of some franchisee explaining, what the business means to them. And every time it's something about community, and I think that's really, really important. And so for us, it's important to either extend or create an echo of that. And so one of the things we did over the last year is we work with a large brand under Restaurant Brands International called Tim Hortons, which some of you may be familiar with depending on where you are in the U.S. And if you're in Canada, you're definitely familiar with it. It's kind of a Canadian iconic brand, but owned by Restaurant Brands International now out of Miami. And they have this long-running, as far back as I can remember, Tim Hortons Children's Foundation. And it's an opportunity for underprivileged kids in all the communities across Canada, and I think expanding into other parts of the world, to get a summer camp that will teach them life skills, leadership skills, gets them away from potentially challenging home issues, or gets them away from, in some cases, the streets, right? And so, our youth is our future, and we just, we wanted to figure out what can we do. And we've always donated along our 4-year relationship with the brand. We've always donated. This year we decided to make a more significant pledge. So we basically said every time somebody adds a location to our service, we're going to donate $100 to the foundation, and then if we hit a certain milestone, we will double that. And so we were able to donate just a couple weeks ago $100,000 cash to the Tim Hortons Children's Foundation, and we're looking for what our next opportunity is with that particular foundation. But also, this is how we partner with our customers from a brand perspective. So we're looking at lots of Feed the Hungry campaigns that are across multiple brands. How do we work with a brand like let's say like a Jack in the Box and work with their foundations, because we've had good support from their corporation at the Zor level, their franchisees at the Z level, and so where we're seeing some place where we can actually make scalable or significant impact by our partnership with a brand, tying to those charities to help all the the regions and communities that fall there under through the franchising system. So we'll do
well,
a lot
hats
more.
off. Hats off to you, and that's extremely commendable. And you're speaking like somebody who's been around franchising all his life, not just recently. So sharing that with others and with our audience is great, and it's very inspirational to hear that supplier members of IFA have that caring and sharing disposition as well as the franchisor or franchisee membership. Thank you, Solink, for that. So let's talk a little bit about Solink and how everybody in the food business, whether it's a restaurant, retail store, in and out of food, everybody's got security systems, and everybody's rolling tape or rolling digital and has cameras up that if an event were to occur, you could go back to a time code and you could grab 11 p.m. last night and look at the video and see what was there as a reaction to something that occurred. But my understanding of Solink and its AI and its smarts is that it's able to proactively see events in the course of the day that enable an operator of a location, be it mom pop or a multi-unit operator, even off-site, not in the restaurant, anytime during the day, to see trend lines that are showing him things that he needs to go back and look at, and it points you right to it. Let's talk about the equivalent of the smartphone in store security.
Yeah, and that's a great metaphor for it. So you have this device or the set of devices or the system, and you use it for one purpose and one purpose only today, right? And that's the old phone. It made phone calls. You might have been able to squeeze out text messages using the numerical dialing to create your thing. So, it wasn't very efficient. It wasn't very fun to use and all that stuff. And so you had this necessity. I need to be able to make phone calls. It's the same thing. You have a necessity. Think of it as like having insurance. If something bad happens, I want to be able to go to the video clip. The problem is it's not a video clip. It's a 24-hour. Ideally, you have the data. Sometimes when you go to look at something and you're using think of a DVR. If you don't use your DVR for a year, and then all of a sudden something very bad happens, as soon as you start to try to use it, it might break on you. And so these types of things where, again, a necessary evil, I've got a cost, usually right at the start of my, venture in this new location. I've broken ground, I've got everything, I've got all my suppliers, and I got to add security cameras, and it's just another cost, right? And so, it's a cost that's not giving you return on investment. You buy supplies that turn into, the great food that you provide to your customers or product that you sell to your customers. You're getting a return on the investment. Every one of your, machines and tools that you use to produce that has a return. The investments in cleaning and all that stuff and customer experience and your marketing, that all has a return. Your cameras don't, right? Your camera's return is, I'm going to have this insurance policy when I need it. And so we look at that as an area for disruption of, again, a sort of a kind of a fat and lazy industry. It's like, you're going to have to buy cameras from somebody. I'm the guy that called you today, or I'm the local guy or gal, and, you're going to buy cameras from somebody. I hope you buy them from me, and here's the best price. That's not a value purchase for the average business. So we said, well, why isn't it, right? Why can't we take something that is like that, give it a software integration, and let that software continue to evolve with the needs of a user, right, a customer of ours? And so that's what we did. So we said, how do we work with existing cameras? We figured out a way to do that. All different kinds of cameras. If you have digital cameras or analog cameras, doesn't matter to us. We work with them all. If you have a point-of-sale system for restaurant or a point-of-sale system for retail, we integrate with them. And so by integrating with the existing tools, our upfront, cost footprint is, in a lot of cases, zero, because we're using the existing systems, and then we're going to apply this value-based technology to it to turn them into smart cameras and smart point-of-sale, where we combine these two things to add a new level of intelligence, which is, I have data about every transaction, and I have video of every transaction. If I have that, is there a way for a system or a machine, and we talk about machine learning and artificial intelligence, can the machine learn what is a bad transaction versus a good transaction, a potential upsell versus, a missed opportunity for upsell, a good customer experience versus a bad customer experience, a highly trained employee versus an employee that needs training, somebody stealing versus somebody who's just had an issue with, simple math, or has been, taken by a customer, or has been, dealing with fraud or something like that. And so we answer all those questions with the solution. Right? At the end of the day, we'll tell you the difference between those two, and we'll generally show you the bad and the good, depending on what you want to look at. So we want to show you that Susan is your top employee for upsell, and show you examples of her interactions with customers that allow her to do that, so that you can then share that with all your staff and say, please do what Susan does. We're also going to show you when Ricky, is stealing from you, so you can say, don't do what Ricky does. And so between these things, you can actually take any of your policies, any of your process, and not just tell or teach, but show. That's actually a quote from one of our customers where she, a woman named Betty York, who's a franchisee out of Nova Scotia, Canada, has a couple locations. It's a family business that she wants to hand down to her kids. That's what she's done. She said, if I show them, the good and the bad and sort of say, please do, please don't, then I'm going to potentially eliminate my theft and I'm going to increase my productivity. And when I increase my productivity, I get better output. So she's shrinking her cost and increasing her growth, effectively putting money in her own pocket from a margin perspective. And that's the game when you're a franchisee. That margin is your income at the end of the day. So, and where you're going to future invest. So if you have rising food costs or rising wage costs, which we've seen our customers deal with and help them through it, you need to increase that margin. So reducing costs is an easy approach. We can help you do that. That's a no-brainer return on investment, immediate return on investment. But how do you also increase your top line through this by having better customer service, better engagements, more meaningful engagements with your customers and your community, by being able to have your employees at their absolute most optimal level of effectiveness every day if you can't show them how to do that.
We're going to unpack all of this in the course of the show today,
sorry.
But I want to rewind the tape though to something that I want to underscore, because I don't think everybody might have grabbed this the first time it was stated, and that is you can do all of this with your existing cameras and your existing point of sale. This is not a required purchase for you to go out and buy a whole new set of hardware to power this tool. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I mean, the pains, right? So we talk to a lot of different franchisees and franchisors for that matter, and some of the pains are, a franchisee can't afford a dedicated IT staff, technical staff. They don't know local people, all the time that can do things for them for the best price. They don't have time to shop for the best price. So what if everything is, delivered as a service in a sense of you call Solink, we figure out what you have, we figure out what you need from us to integrate with that. We deliver it in a monthly, subscription. Everything is covered in that monthly subscription, and then we'll source the local people that are experts, that are certified by us to go in and make sure everything connects together and everything works. All of your training and onboarding and support is all included in at one price. So it is delivered as a service, so you don't have to have an IT person or a technical person. And so being able to work with the existing systems means that, again, it's just another pain in the process or a barrier to leveraging this type of technology that we try to remove. And it's very accurate as the biggest savings. You don't need anything new. What you've got is good enough. And if through our system we show you ways to, add to that. So an example would be very few people use what's called a fisheye camera or a 360 camera that would give you a panoramic view of your whole restaurant or store because they don't really work right out of the box. We've made them work very good. So think of sticking your head through your ceiling from you're sitting on a beach in Mexico, hopefully, and your store in Minneapolis, is having an issue or you want to check in. Think of being able to stick your head through the ceiling virtually and look in any direction. And so that's what we've done with these 360 cameras. So you may evolve through using our tool. Once you've seen the value, you've got the return on the investment. That all happens, usually within 2 weeks of deploying our solution. Now you can start to get better equipment to do more with the technology. But your point is very important. You don't need anything new to start.
You're listening to Franchise Today. I'm Stan Friedman, and I'm talking today with Jim Farrell, VP of Sales for Solink. This segment of Franchise Today is brought to you by the Franchise Foundry, where Paul Segreto and his team have been bringing emerging brands to market for more than 30 years, providing them the guidance and wisdom needed to assure sustainable growth as they build out their brands. They achieve this by both coaching and consulting their clients, delivering more effective solutions for both the franchisor's corporate team as well as their franchisees. Practical, hands-on experience and expertise is what the Foundry provides for their clients in general business management, operational and change management, digital marketing, and, of course, franchise recruitment and development. To learn more about how the Franchise Foundry can take your brand to the next level, pay them a visit at www.franchisefoundry.com. Franchise Today also brought to you by FRM Solutions, providing best-in-class CRM and document management software designed specifically for franchising. FRM empowers real-time business intelligence, communication, and collaboration between all members of the franchisor's team and their prospective and existing franchisees. This empowers your team to simply and seamlessly track, access, and manage all messages to and from prospects and existing franchisees, including text. Legal and compliance is simplified too, with FRM's document management, and even site visits can be managed digitally and scored with FRM. Make today the day that you give FRM a look and assure that all of your candidate and franchisee correspondence, including texts, are being permanently tracked and archived in candidate and franchise records. FRM even provides state-of-the-art digital experiences for your prospective franchisees, replacing old-style virtual brochures. No long-term contracts, multiple upgrades each year at no additional cost. No excuses, just solutions. On the web at frmsolutions.com. So, Jim, we've got a lot to unpack further here because you shared a ton of information in the first half of the show. And literally, I think that you've taken what could be thought of as a singular service of loss prevention and broadened the scope to coaching, to training, to value from mom and pop to the multi-unit off-site franchisee. And I see huge value to franchisors who may not be your the direct purchasers or buyers of your service, but any franchisor who has a focus on unit-level economics has got to be tuned in and listening to this, because literally in the penny profit business of restaurants, as you've indicated, you can make a huge impact on what goes in the till versus what's spilling out the back door, can't you?
You can. I mean, we work with just as many franchisors at the end of the day, because we are working with brands that have maybe been household names at one time and are in their revitalization stage, and that have consumed their locations back into corporate, put in new leadership, put in new structure, and are going back to grow. That's hard to do, right? When you have an existing brand that has been around for a while, it's much harder to do if you have a brand new brand. So we work with all different sizes, from the thousands of unit type ZORs to the 50-unit ZOR who's just starting to grow. To we have a meeting today with a 4-unit ZOR who they own 2 of their 4 and they're wanting to expand to 10 by the end of the year. And so what it comes down to is a couple of big areas there as far as value. I think when we're talking about percentage points and penny profits and all these kinds of things, I mean, that should be sort of easy. If we can, I'll give you an example. We have a ZOR who is putting in new menu items, several fairly significant new menu items. And those new menu items are, something that goes down to the Z, and they need to now start to promote that and push that, train their teams on what they are, how to make them, all that stuff. They can go look at a spreadsheet and say, these aren't selling very well, or these are selling well. But, to be able to go into and look at the context, completely, right? So look at how often are these items with other items, right? Or how often, if I've introduced a lunch item to a breakfast environment, at lunchtime, are people buying breakfast or are they buying lunch? And then to be able to see abnormalities, like why isn't this happening, and go right into the video and see that there's no real option for it. There's no real signage for it. The menu board hasn't changed. When you look at data in a spreadsheet, you can draw conclusions, but they're conclusions with a huge component of the data missing, and the data for us would be the video there. So there's big things when you think of, again, the ZOR and the Z coming together to increase your top line around new products and items, because that's an easy way. I mean, I shouldn't say it's easy. It's one of the big ways to increase profitability for both groups, but ultimately your top line for both groups. Also, loss often come out of the Z's pocket. And so when we talk about having integrations or being supportive of tools that help you avoid loss, that's showing your franchisee that you're trying to recruit potentially, especially if they're used to these types of things. The franchisee that you're trying to recruit sees that you use technology to the advantage of both the Z and the ZOR, right, and to the customer and to everybody involved, the employees, because technology, doesn't just exist because it's fun. It exists because it has purpose and value. And so that's another great example where you have technology available to your Z that helps them minimize or eliminate their loss, which increases their profit. If over time using a solution like this across an entire brand demonstrates a higher operating profit that ends up in an FDD, you can sort of follow the chain, right? I think it's pretty straightforward. On the other side of that, when you leave things traditionally, and we've sort of observed this trend, franchisors will leave things like security systems up to their franchisee. And so the ZOR potentially loses control over a simple piece that might touch the network. And we've seen, especially in Canada, we've seen actually some significant breaches over the last year, almost a year to the day since it was a major significant breach with a large brand up here, where the entry point for breach, when we think of malware and ransomware, these are very serious things when it comes to these systems because they prey on the idea of a franchise model because the network isn't as locked down. And so if you have a off-the-shelf DVR that connects to the internet inside of your corporate network, that could be an entry point with a password of admin and a username of admin. And there's people that specifically build technology to go attack that, and all of a sudden ransomware's come in through one of your Zs, and it's come in through a DVR. That's impossible with us. In fact, we were named a Schedule A approved vendor for a brand specifically because we were the only thing on their network they couldn't penetrate. So we take security very seriously, not just from a physical security of an environment or a bricks and mortar building, but the virtual security from a cybersecurity perspective. And so, again, taking something that might be off the shelf like your cameras and putting them into a smart environment means smart security as well. And that's important for the brand. The breach happens at the Z. It hits the corporate network. The whole organization is breached. And again, there are many examples of that over the last year. Major revenue loss, too.
You talked some about how even a 4-unit brand new emerging franchisor is deploying your tool. So how do we get people to learn more about how easy it is to deploy Solink and what kind of training and support does Solink provide for somebody who's an operator of a restaurant and may not have the proclivity to understanding the back end of the technology that drives the intelligence that Solink delivers? So they're used to spreadsheets, but what about your environment? How easy is it for them to learn to make this technology work?
Well, I think that too, right? So I think good businesses listen to their customers. I mean, that's clear. I mean, you can go back into any great business anywhere in the world. All of them have some chain of either a feature or a function or a campaign or a slogan or some menu item or something like that comes from an idea from some customer somewhere, and listening to your customers is how you get those, right? And I think I advise, and it seems no-brainer, but we'd be amazed at how often we sort of talk to people about how they collect their feedback from their customers, and it still seems like there's some work to do there. But talking to your customers and hearing, what would you like to have, on the menu? What do you think is missing from our menu? It's the same thing we do. We build our technology with our customers, not just for our customers, but with our customers. So everything you see feature-wise in our system has probably been something that, some user of ours or an owner of an operation or a franchisor, IT group or something like that has said, it would be really cool if you guys could do this. And so we often just start building that for them. We have a feedback mechanism directly in our mobile application and our web application, which is how we deliver this technology. It's mobile and web. Access anything in your restaurant, anywhere in the world, any time of the day from any device is one of the sort of taglines here, right? And so when we had a customer say, it would be really cool if I could draw on just draw on one of my camera shots around this particular inventory area where I think I'm losing inventory and just see when people touch that. And 3 months later, we released that feature where it is. That's the best way to describe it. Look at your camera through our web application or our mobile app, draw on the camera on the box that you think is being stolen, and you'll be able to click through like a playlist of every time somebody touched that. Pretty advanced feature. That came from a customer who wanted to see if their garbage was picked up on January 1st last year because they lost $500 when the guy said, no, I came and the garbage wasn't there. His staff said the garbage was there. He wasn't there because he was enjoying hopefully a day off on New Year's Day and $500 out of his pocket. we watched video with him. That's part of our service, is to help with these investigations, and proved that, he's owed $500 or a free garbage pickup. It was his idea. Could I just draw? And so a year later at the franchise convention for that, the owners convention for that brand, he was there, and I said, what do you think of the feature? And he's like, it is exactly what I told you I wanted. And so for us, the usability is our number one feature. The fact that anybody from a 17-year-old part-timer to your seasoned manager to your, let's say, non-millennial general manager to the person that's working only night shifts but is senior enough, maybe in their, mid to late 50s, to the owner, to your CFO, everybody should be able to use this tool. If you can use Facebook or Twitter, you can use Netflix or YouTube. When we think of video, you can use our solution. It's all built to be as intuitive as possible for the, the best way to say it is the lowest common denominator. Can somebody pick this up at any level of technology expertise, at any age group, at any level of professional training or education, pick this up and use it without any instruction? And the answer is yes.
And all the departments and multitudes of people that can be benefiting from this, I'm sitting here just trying in my mind's eye to picture the conversation that you kind of detailed in the first half of the program about catching somebody doing something right and seeing the upsell or seeing behavior that's positive that can become a coaching tool to show to others. How easy is it for operators to be able to do that? How many minutes a day can somebody spend, or would somebody spend, to try to get a comprehensive understanding of some of the trend lines that are occurring in their restaurant?
Well, I think the good news is we want to minimize the minutes they spend trying to do that. So we do lots of different levels of reporting. That's highly customizable. We don't sort of, again, we built a customizable solution, but we don't build customized solutions, if that makes sense, where out of the box, you could change your needs. One of the things we observe in the franchise world is it's challenging with point-of-sale vendors, as an example, who there's so many of them because many of them, their very first customer, customize the product for their need, and then it's not really applicable to many other customers. And so that's why there's so many point-of-sale systems, which drives us, probably just as much as it drives all of you guys. And so that sort of evolution, right? So we don't have that problem. We can allow pretty intense levels of customization. You want to look for good and bad. You want to look for good or bad. Daily reporting, highlighting, just think of it as surfacing to the top the things you should look at. And if you're trying to report on both, you're going to get both. It's going to be crystal clear. Come into an email and say, these are things you may want to review because you've expressed an interest in these types of things. So a training opportunity here, a potential theft there, having those things combined. We can do this in real time even. So this thing just happened. Somebody closed a, $45 transaction when, or greater than $45 transaction when our average transaction is $9.37. Do you want to know when that happens in the moment so you can specifically go look at that transaction that day and saw what the components of that were? Was it somebody that was, a family that doubled their order, or was it, just something where somebody came in and ordered for a group of people? That immediacy of figuring out, well, we want them to come back, right? So let's stop them at the door and make sure that they had a good experience, or let's see if they had a good experience. Real time can be beneficial for the on-site manager or the general manager, and then weekly reporting might be bigger trend lines. So how are your voids looking, over the week? Do we find that we're having too many voids? Do we find that discount to total ratios are creeping up? And so these sort of more, sort of macro trends. And we can plot this out just in showing those reports, or we can show it generally as a form of charts. So reporting and dashboards. I don't want you watching a lot of video. In fact, our solution is built to make you watch as minimal amount of actual footage as possible. Our system is going to watch, hundreds of millions of hours, worth of footage across all of our customers for you. We only want you looking at the stuff that's going to improve your business. And so the minutes is if you spend, more than half an hour in our system in a day, that's great. We hope you're using the system that much, but that would be the majority, and that's going to set you up to save ideally an hour of time, either driving to a location that you don't need to drive to because everything's good, or making it more efficient throughout the day with your staff. So there's lots of different use cases, but a couple minutes to save a couple hours, or a couple minutes to generate a couple percentage points. That's kind of the equation we're going for.
It almost seems to me that you've got probably three different conversations at the very least that you need to be having with people at a convention like IFA. Your message is going to make so much sense to a field ops person, and a different message for a different reason is going to make a great deal sends to somebody in finance and in compliance. And your tool is benefiting everyone from the bottom up. I can't see anyone in this scenario that doesn't come up all winners. I mean, aces all the way around. What about the small operator?
I was gonna challenge you on that, Stan, because there is a loser in this scenario, and it's the people that are not good for your business. They're your bad apples. They tend to lose. And so that's the only correction I'll give you there.
Fair and equitable.
You want them out of your business.
Yeah. Fair and equitable. Who's too small for this, Jim? Is there anyone that can't afford this? I mean, to me, the ROI factor alone says I'm going to want this because it's kind of like marketing. The more you spend, the more you're going to return. So why don't you want to spend more for marketing if it's going to bring you back more to your bottom line? Here, too, cost-wise, is it prohibitive at any level, or is the ROI just a no-brainer even for a single-unit operator?
No, it's a good question, and I don't want to just sort of sit here with a big pitch for the solution. So I'll give you the sort of the raw, skinny of it here. Right? Is at the end of the day, if you have a single location, or you are multi-unit, or you multi-brand, again, the Z-Zor, any level of especially in the franchise world, any level of customer, we have an affordability aspect. Again, it's a subscription basis. We don't do lock-in contracts, so you can cancel any time. We do basically a cancellation fee versus having you pay at the contract, because we know how much franchisees, really any restaurant or retail operator, small business operator in the sense of kind of a local business, they don't like to be locked into contracts for multiple years, so we don't lock you in or anything like that. So that's all well and good, so it makes it affordable. But I will say that there's certain profiles when we look at who we want to work with from a customer perspective, again, giving you sort of the raw aspect of here versus the political answer. The raw aspect is there are units that make small amounts of revenue per year, where if you don't have the right number of units, people that are sitting there with their operating profit is, generating them, just above minimum wage kind of thing. Where if you're not in a business that's generating you more than $500,000 in an average unit volume, or your margins are very paper thin, getting below 8% or anything like that, it can be hard to afford really anything for that matter. And this might be either a way to increase your percentage, but traditionally we see where that's our challenge in presenting a great value equation: single unit, sub $500,000 in annual revenue, and margins below 8%. It's really hard for them to buy anything for their business, and that's sort of the line. And again, even then, we have a pile of those, right? We work with brands like Cold Stone Creamery, which aren't massive and only operate for a portion of the year, or like a Dairy Queen that only operates for a portion of the year. Again, not locking in contracts helps with the value equation there, but they're not bringing in millions of dollars every year for those particular units. They're very small, kiosky type units. We have cost equations that we work with on those vendors. We want everybody to benefit from the solution, and so if we can make it work, we'll make it work. But just who buys our solution the most? That's usually the line.
Well, and that makes nothing but sense again as well. I mean, if somebody's sub those numbers, they're really not in business anyway. To the point where they'd need this kind of a powerful tool to drive the business further. They've got other needs. To your point. Tell us about IFA and convention. What is it that you're looking to accomplish at IFA this year? And tell the audience what they can learn and see. Are you going to be doing demos at the convention? Will people be able to actually see the software work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking and trying to describe a lot here, but I'll tell your audience what. If you haven't seen what we've got, come definitely stop by the IFA booth that we have there. Again, the Solink booth. I don't think the number yet, but of course will be easy to find. And seeing a demo, we believe that people seeing the product is the best way for us to educate on the value, because it's kind of when you see it, you get it. So we'll have demos there. We'll have iPads with those 360 views on there. We'll have a couple of our top guys at the particular event, and they'll be there to specifically just educate and show. If you want to buy on the spot, we have a mechanism to do that as well, but because it's that easy to take on Solink. But seeing it is believing, and we're also starting to do that across our website. We're doing sign up for our newsletter, and you'll be told about our public demos where you don't have to talk to a salesperson just to see Solink. We want everybody to see it. And so you don't have to feel like you're in a salesperson pressure environment or anything like that. That's not really how we sell, but, perception of salespeople, right? So seeing it at an event or seeing it through one of our monthly webinars is a great way to take a look at it without, needing to be engaged with a person who's going to, ultimately try to help your business. But some people just want to see, and IFA is a great way to do that. And I think for all the vendors there is, if you're going to IFA, the vendors are there, to sell you stuff, of course, and to advertise to you. But the ones that are showing off their product, I think those are the ones that when I go to, a convention, if you're going to show me what you got versus tell me what you got, I'm a little more sold on that. And the other thing we want to, see at IFA is we want to see all the talks. We want to see Gary. We want to see all the talks. We believe that if we know as intimately the franchise world as our franchise customers, that's the only way we can help their business. We're not just trying to sell technology. I want your business to grow so that I can sell you more units. It's the same way, everything works, right, in the franchise world. It's more units, unit
right.
economics. So I need your business to be successful, so you're opening new stores, and that's how I'm successful over time. And so we'd like to learn how that's done, and we steal techniques from the franchise community on how to do that, right? How to improve your business and how to help our customers grow is something that we love about IFA, and just see all the friendly faces and close friends that we've accumulated over the year being IFA members.
Jim, is there anything I didn't ask you that you wish that I did?
Well, I mean, I'll do the I think the whole thing's been a bit of a shameless plug, but in the context of helping, right? But the shameless plug is, if you want to take a look at what we've got, very simple, solink.com, SOLINK. Think of it as security and operations linked, SOLINK.com. And if you want to just learn about, how certain declutter techniques or how you should decorate your bathrooms or anything like that, we don't just, on our website, we don't just talk about our solution. We educate restaurant owners and retailers. So check out the resources section. And, of course, you can always book a tour at the top right. And our sales team and our marketing teams and even our support teams are all built of people who've worked in the industry. They've worked in restaurants. They've worked in retail. One of our top customer support people spent many years working at a Starbucks. One of our top sales reps spent many years working at a Boston Pizza. And so that's part of why we hire, because they can relate to the environment. We have ex-GMs of restaurants that sit on our sales team. We don't just hire, ex-technology, heavy hitter salespeople. We want our sales team to be a support and a consultant. And so booking a tour with one of them, just know that you're not going to get, somebody asking for your credit card right away. You're going to get somebody that's asking how they can help your business.
Well, I can't thank you gave him a shout out earlier, and I can't thank Jerry Darnell and Ryan Hicks enough for introducing me to Martin. The first time I learned about Solink, I was hooked that this was something that was absolutely phenomenal. A no-lose situation for anyone who uses it. And I'm proud to have you today as a guest, and moreover, proud to have you as a new sponsor of the front of the house here on Franchise Today. Jim, looking forward to seeing the entire team out at IFA, and thanks for sharing with our audience today and helping them educate on the different ways that Solink can do a whole lot more than just catch somebody doing something wrong, but help you grow your business and train your people up to a higher level using modern technology like that provided by Solink. Thanks again, Jim, for being my guest today.
My pleasure, Stan. Appreciate it.
And that's going to wrap another edition of Franchise Today. Next week, please come back and join me when Tom Portese, CEO of MFV Expos, is going to be making a return appearance, but we're not going to be talking about expos and shows next week. Rather, we're going to be discussing a new product that MFV has acquired. It's actually a competition. It's the Best Franchisee of the World competition, and it's going to start here in the U.S. Right now, between now and June at IFE, where we will be showcasing and announcing the winner of the Best Franchisee in the USA competition. This competition is going to be multinational. It's going to take part across 10 or 12 countries, where a team of judges will be selecting the best franchisee in their nation, and all of these winners will be joining together in December 12th in Florence, Italy, as winners of their country and competing for the title of Best Franchisee in the world. I'm proud to be joined by Amy Cheng, Dr. John Hayes, Eric Stites, and Therese Tilgen as the 5 judges in the USA. And Tommy will be here next week on the program to talk more about the competition and how franchisors can get involved in nominating their best of the best of breed in their systems to compete in this competition. More about it next week. Until then, I'm Stan Friedman, wishing you the best, the very best of all things franchising, and Franchise Today is out.
When you're part of a military family, you understand sacrifice and support. At American Public University, we honor your dedication by extending our military tuition savings to your extended family. Parents, spouses, legal partners, siblings, and dependents all qualify for APU's preferred military rate of just $250 per credit hour for undergraduate and master's level programs. American Public University. Value for the whole family. Learn more at apu.apus.edu/military.